Power Hour LSU. Boom!
All night long. Yes.
Let's freaking go. The rare 4:30 in the evening live stream. Good to be with you. Obviously, one question that I have been consistently being asked about is, will JAVIEN Toviano and Whit Weeks actually play more moving forward? Because while Toviano played a good portion of the Alabama game, we really didn't see much of Whit Weeks at all. We're going to talk about that. Obviously, the big story as we move closer to the Florida game, will JAYDEN Daniels play? We got an update earlier today that JAYDEN Daniels is indeed improving day to day, obviously practicing and all that good stuff. And on Thursday, we will learn more information. So it really is a day-to-day situation. Obviously, it's pretty straightforward how different things move if JAYDEN is going to be the guy or if Garrett Nussmeier is going to be the guy. They are two completely different quarterbacks, but I don't know how much the offense would change too much, because so much of what LSU does, or what so much of what makes JAYDEN Daniels special, is a scrambling ability, right? And if he's a scrambler, that means, the passing plays are still being called. He's the one that's actually, though, running after when nothing is open down the field. So I think for me, we'll know more by the Thursday night live stream. And we will have a special guest on Thursday night. So we hope you join in for that. But right now, it's just going to come down to the concussion protocol, right? If they truly feel he is able to go and able to continue, that is what you want, right? I know some of you feel that the long term for LSU football is better served if Garrett Nussmeier gets the chance to start versus Florida. And you are right about that. If Garrett Nussmeier is able to get a start, he is able, of course, to get that SEC experience as, his career moves forward. But what I would also say is a quarterback going to New York City for the Heisman Trophy ceremony is more important than anything else, because there is no bigger award in sports given out individually than a Heisman Trophy, right? NBA MVPs don't matter as much as Heisman trophies. MLB MVPs, NFL MVPs, they just don't matter as much as what a Heisman Trophy can do for your career, right? There are a bunch of Heisman Trophy winners that didn't do anything at the next level, but because they're a Heisman Trophy winner, they're able to demand high speaking engagement fees. They're able to still be a part of Nissan Heisman Trophy campaigns. And if your brand is associated with that, it's huge, right? So, I feel as if it's better for LSU if JAYDEN Daniels continues to play, because if he is all souped up and ready to go for the Florida Gators game, he is going to light them up. And a big reason why I personally am making the trip for this LSU Florida game is because I want to see JAYDEN Daniels in the flesh yet again. Okay, he's just so special. He's meant a lot to me in this channel, and I want to see him continue to cook and develop, because, it is a little bit different. His jump from Joe Burrow's jump, it's different because Joe didn't get the opportunity to play in an offense with actual vertical passing concepts, right? It was still more of a run-based attack than 2018, and then in 2019, you saw the leap. The 2022 LSU offense isn't as radically different from the 2023 offense than what it was from 2018 to 2019. So, important to point that out. So I do think it is better for LSU if JAYDEN continues to play, because it also gives us a better chance to win. We say hi to Skipper, Todd, Christopher, Roy, Dwayne, Kenneth, and we'll go to Roy's question first. Would you rather Daniels win the Heisman but Alabama win the Natty, or Daniels not get to New York but Bama doesn't make the CFP? Obviously, I'd prefer Jayden Daniels. Look, the truth here is, yes, I don't like it when Alabama wins. I don't. It's just the same old, right? I would much rather Georgia win a third in a row than Alabama even get to the playoff, right? But look, I want Jayden to win this Heisman Trophy so bad. And I think there are enough rational people out there that can look at our situation and see how much he has actually lifted and carried us, more so than anything else. Okay. Now, I'm going to try and get to some Brian Kelly audio from the teleconference via Jacques Doucet a little bit later, but I do want to talk about the young guys. I went back yet again and rewatched the LSU Alabama game. All right. I was getting a lot of things ready for the SEC channel, and one thing I cut earlier today is all of Garrett Nussmeier's reps versus Alabama. I broke them down into deep detail on Patreon, and there was one thing that really stood out to me with Garrett Nussmeier's reps, and it has to do with one of LSU's best players on offense. And I think that held Garrett Nussmeier back at the end. And I explained it all on Patreon. You can check it out for yourself. I got to be real. I understand Garrett Nussmeier's numbers did not look good versus Alabama. I thought his performance was really freaking good. If you factor in the extra context to what he had to deal with in that situation. So I honestly thought it was borderline very, very, very good, even though the numbers don't show that. Okay. I didn't think I'd get as much pushback saying that earlier this week on Tuesday. But he looked pretty damn good to me. So there you go. Now, as far as the young guys playing, I am a little disappointed. I am a little disappointed. Actually, I'm not going to lie to you. I'm very disappointed that Whit Weeks didn't get his opportunity to play versus Alabama. It was very strange to me, okay? If anything, even if you don't think he is as good as Greg Penn, or if you don't think he's as good as Omar Speights, I mean, I don't think people understand that some offenses are more exhausting to defend than other offenses. And to me, the most exhausting offenses you have to play are the offenses where you have to run down the opposing team's quarterback consistently. Playing a dual threat quarterback is exhausting, especially, I think in this last game, you had the two best runners at the quarterback position going mano-a-mano. Right. And, I was able to watch them all 22 of Jalen Milroe earlier today, and his burst is truly insane. Whit Weeks is faster than both Greg Penn and Omar Speights. And please, in the comment section, correct me if I'm wrong on that. If anything, it would have given those guys some rest, or at the very least, given Alabama a different look. Okay. I am very shocked Whit Weeks did not play more in this game. Very, very, very shocked. Okay. And I'll be straight up with you. Here's why the Whit Weeks and the Toviano thing bothers me. Okay. I understand that how I see the players might be different than how the coaches see it, how you guys see it. But I really liked Whit Weeks coming in. Like, a lot of the stuff he's done this year isn't the absolute most shocking thing to me. I always thought he was more of a year two guy than a year one guy, but his high school tape was absolutely absurd. It's one of the best high school tapes I've ever seen from any LSU prospect. Now, once again, that's only a portion of it, right? The truth, though, is he deserved playing time versus Alabama. He did. Now, would that have changed anything? No, because Milroe had so much open space to run through, it would not have changed anything at all. Okay. But he would have given us just a little something different. I feel. So I don't understand it. I really don't. Could it be that he's just a freshman? I don't know. I honestly don't know. But he's got to play more, and there needs to be more questioning. Okay, look, after a second rewatch, Toviano's performance was a little bit rougher than I initially remembered, but it still wasn't bad. It still wasn't as bad as as some of the other corners who have played. Okay, so I thought Toviano was good. Obviously, the run fitting was worse than obviously what he did in pass coverage. We need to see this Florida game though before we blanket statements say that Toviano not playing earlier in the season was not smart, because Florida's got two really good wide receivers, Eugene Wilson, who is also a true freshman, and Ricky Pearsall, who is, of course, a good friend of JAYDEN Daniels, their former teammates at Arizona State. So I'm very interested to see how Toviano matches up versus a quarterback in Graham Mertz, who's not going to run. Okay, he's going to actually throw it. So this will be a matchup where Toviano, if he does play, is going to get tested way more, and he's going to play. He's probably going to start opposite Sage Ryan. So, it was interesting though. It was interesting. Now, why do I single out in the title of this video, JAVIEN Toviano WHIT weeks? Well, it's not necessarily that they're true freshmen, okay? It's that they were both early enrollees, right? So I've always thought the early enrollee thing is overrated, right? I think life would be so much easier on everyone involved if we just made National Signing Day on in February, right? Bring back the Bayou Bash, make every high school kid in America sign in February. That's a debate for the off season. Still, I think there is some value in early enrolling because you get there earlier, right? That makes it even less of an excuse to not play them, right? It's not like they just showed up to campus, right? It's not like they enrolled in the fall. They've been around, right? And one thing to keep in mind, it was just a spring game. But Whit Weeks and Toviano had good spring games, okay? They had good practices, per my sources. There was never really a time where they didn't look like they belonged. Something else I like about them is, once again, I could be wrong on this. I could have just been fed bad information. So whenever it gets into these kinds of things, it's all in the eye of the beholder and people who are actually there every day. So this is just a disclaimer, but both of them are good teammates. Okay. They interview well. If you listen to any JAVIEN Toviano interview, you would think that kid was going to be the next Josh Dobbs, right? The next rocket scientist. And the kid is unreal when it comes to being compelling, right? I still go back and I look at the video JAVIEN Toviano shot of the Alabama game last year. And same thing's true for Whit Weeks, right? We've seen him do interviews this year with LSU football. They're both compelling and guys that seem like they're locked in and played at good high schools. I don't know. I would like to see them more moving forward. We're definitely going to see Toviano, but I want to see more Whit Weeks. I do. I do. Okay. Big Al says back in his day. It's good to see you, Big Al. Tell Desi I said hello. World War II vets are calling it. Well, we got a World War II comment. You know you're throwing it back, man. If you guys saw Big Al's photo, if you're watching this or just listening to this via podcast, you'd be like, yeah, Big Al, he was there for World War II after he delivered presents in December. Good to see you, Big Al. Even if you were better and more reliable, Seniority and the good old boy system ruled. I hated that stuff. I had to eat it too. Yeah. But yeah, understand, Weeks and Toviano aren't without fault. Okay. It is a little bit of a tough pill to swallow, though, that these guys weren't playing earlier in the season. Okay. Now, I'll say this for tomorrow's live stream. Okay. It's interesting. So I do a film study every Sunday night. Okay. The time and how long the film study depends on the game, right? There's some film studies I do. They're an hour. Some are an hour and a half. Normally they're about an hour and a half. Okay. But there's plays I even cut out or plays that I don't get to. Okay. One thing that just drives me insane about the LSU defense, okay, is, and I know I keep hammering home this point, but if you really watch them closely, you will pick up on more things than you initially thought, okay? And there was one play in particular that drove me insane, okay? And I'll break it down. I'll post it on Twitter, and I'll also post it on the live stream tomorrow night, okay? All I need you to do is understand one thing defensively. If there is something even if you're not a film guy or gal, you should never defensively have two people in the same gap. It should never happen. Never, ever. Okay? Never, ever should it happen. There are few instances where that would even be a plausible thing to do, right? If it's 4th and inches and they're trying to tush push, then yeah, you should fire a defensive tackle through one of the A gaps and try to see if you can get a linebacker to submarine right behind it, okay? Or jump over the top and make a play. So never, ever say never, ever. But in all actuality, you should never, ever be in the same gap. The LSU defense this season has been experts at being in the same gap, okay? Experts. I don't get it. I don't get it. It does not make a whole lot of sense to me. And what I think happened is, from last year's team to this year's team, there is a piece of me that thinks either, one, Matt House isn't making these very simple fixes to tell his defensive fronts to not be in the same gap, okay? Or number two, the players out there are just freelancing it, okay? They don't understand this, okay? Which makes no sense to me. Gap integrity is one of the easier things you do defensively. It's honestly elementary. If he's going through the A gap, that's his responsibility. My job is the B gap, or my job is the opposite A gap, or my job is to loop around and be the new contained defender. It's not hard. It's really, really, really not hard. Where I think we begin to struggle, though, is sometimes the play is not for you to make, okay? The play is for you to be a decoy to let someone else make a play, okay? That's why it's so important to understand this. Your job isn't always to be the one to go make the play. You can sometimes on defense set other people up to make a play, okay? I'll tell you this. One of the most underrated LSU football players, probably of the modern era, is Tyler Shelvin, okay? What did Tyler Shelvin do for LSU football? He existed. That's pretty much it. He existed in the middle of the LSU defense, and his sheer existence gave offenses issues because you know what Tyler Shelvin does? He eats up space. He did something called two gap. He was such a talented player, he was able to play two gaps at once, which opens a lot of things up for what you can do defensively, okay? Guess what? Tyler Shelvin was perfectly content never making a play, never making a tackle, never making a sack, because that wasn't really his job. It wasn't really his role. Okay, we've got to hammer that home. All right. There was instances in the Alabama game too early in the game where even with Milroe's speed, we should have had him sacked. But the only reason we did not sack him is because we had two people running through the same exact gap. Never seen it before. Never seen it. Okay. Even the Orgeron defenses, they never seen it. Never seen it. Okay. So there you go. We'll take a few more questions here before I get to my next topic. Let's go to Zay. He says, Carter, is Sage Ryan officially a bust now? Okay. I'll never call someone a bust if they play. Okay. To me, it is a bust would be someone who just gives you abso-freaking-lutely nothing. Okay. They don't show up or they don't play at all. Okay. Sage has played. So I can't just call him like a complete bust per se. He's not really been that good. I think there's a lot of different factors contributing to that. But I think it's pretty clear at this point he is well under expectations. Okay. And the sad reality here is this LSU team will probably have more 5 stars on it that fell under expectations than any other LSU team that I can remember. Okay. It's been a tough year for Mason. I don't think it's been necessarily as bad as some would think, but it's not been that great of a year for him. You're never really quite yourself until the second year after an ACL injury, right? So yeah, I mean, I hope he comes back and gets back into full shape. But the other 3 5 stars that come to mind that just haven't really done it for us this year. Obviously, John Emery. A lot of that, of course, is academics that's held him back up to this point. And then, of course, Denver Harris and Sage Ryan. As far as Sage is concerned, look, it's just been a tough year. It's just been a really, really, really tough year. And I think what potentially could have happened to him is the injury he had his senior year of high school changed who he was as a player, right? I don't think if I remember correctly, I don't think it was anything too serious, but he was hurt. And then his freshman year, he was hurt again, right? 2 injury-riddled seasons back-to-back can really stunt your development as a young defensive back because, I mean, you got to have the juice, man. DB is a position where, athleticism is pretty much a non-negotiable. I mean, Darrelle Revis was not a Blazer by any stretch of the imagination, okay? So you could be a good DB and not be Tariq Woolen as an athlete, but yeah, there's plenty of people from Lafayette who know Sage and who watch his channel, and he was a great player at LCA. They'll tell you this: hey, he is not a DB; he is a wide receiver, or excuse me, a running back. Maybe he is, maybe he isn't. I don't know, but yeah, it's been tough. It's just been a very tough career. But yeah, it's just tough. It's just really, really tough to not see him live up to the expectations. And the strange thing about that is there are a lot of 5 stars that go to LSU. A lot. the one position where the 5-star really has never busted is defensive back, right? Jamal Adams, obviously superstar. Kevin Tolliver was a 5-star, can't miss guy. For the most part, a very good player. He wasn't a special player, but he was very good. Patrick Peterson, 5-star, obviously really freaking good. Dante Jackson wasn't quite a 5-star. Some services had him at a 5-star. Obviously, Dante Jackson is one of the most versatile LSU defensive backs ever. Derek Stingley gave you one elite year of production, and he's an all-time talent, first-round draft pick, 5-star. So, you look at the 5-stars that have come here and then have been defensive backs. They are near, as loaded of a position with no whiffs as you could find. But yeah, it's tough. It's really, really, really tough. Cliff disagrees with Sage. Let's get to a few more here. Once again, if you super chat, we'll go straight to it. Why? And one of you texted me earlier today. Why are you going at 4:30? It's so early. I do have a new position where I'm a play-by-play for some college basketball teams. So that's obviously really cool. So I've got a game I have to do tonight, and I have a game I have to do tomorrow, but the live stream will still remain the same. So 8:15 Central tomorrow night. All right, let's go to Chile. Carter, honest question. Is this defensive staff hurting the development of Harold Perkins? No, I don't think so. I don't. I think obviously Harold Perkins is not had the same impactful season as he had last year. He is playing a new-ish kind of role. The tough thing about it, Chili, so since I've been doing high school evaluations, Harold Perkins is still by far the best prospect I've seen since Derek Stingley, since 2019. So he is so far and away the best high school prospect I've seen come to LSU since that season, right? But my position on him has always been the same. He doesn't really have a position. He's just a beast, right? And that's always been the issue, is where is his best position? What can we do to maximize the return on Harold Perkins' transcendent playmaking abilities, ball skills, instincts? And the answer to that is complicated. Some guys are just tweeners, and that's part of the dilemma. But he is a special football player. I don't think this season has necessarily stunted his development. I don't. And it's not like Harold Perkins has just had a bad season, right? Take a look at the Power 5 games up to this point. Tough game versus Alabama. Tough game versus Auburn. Tough-ish game versus Arkansas. Made a few good plays mixed in there. But really good game. I meant to say toughish game versus Arkansas. Really good game versus Auburn. Really good game versus Missouri. Actually, very, very good game versus Missouri. So, yeah, I don't think this season is stunted his development, right? Now, of course, last year he was absolutely positively lights out. But still. Now, let me take a look at this. Trying to read the latest on this Michigan thing. It doesn't really look like anything crazy. So Zion, good to see you, buddy. Kedrick says, I hope GP and Spates are gone after this year. Well, this is Spates' last year of eligibility. Been a very tough year. Been a very tough year. I honestly thought he was going to be a really good player for us. Greg, I don't think Greg's had a bad year. He's had some bad moments though. So there you go. Now, next topic I wanted to get to. It's a follow up on what we actually led the stream with yesterday, which was a big picture question. Was this season a failure? And I now that I've slept on it and re-listened to the episode, I don't like to ever call any season like just a failure, right? Because it's if you do, it's as if you didn't learn anything or if you didn't do anything right. We've done a lot right this season. I think the difference between failure and over or under expectations are two different things, right? Were we under expectations this season? Yes, we were under expectations this season. Are we a team that can win more games this year and get us and can we obviously still get to a really good bowl game? Yes. I think one thing that would be good for LSU, and I've seen the bowl projections, it does seem to set itself up for an LSU versus Notre Dame bowl game. I think if LSU wins out or Notre Dame wins out, you have two programs about at the same level this season, right? Multiple losses. Obviously, you could tell they're very good teams. They're not elite teams. Let's go to Rob G in the super chat. Thank you so much, Rob, for super chat of the evening. He says, Carter, I agree JD is great, but when people say he was better than Joe, I question. I will say this. As great as I think Jayden is, I don't think I personally have ever said he was better than Joe. Yeah, I think my point this weekend, though, was Jayden had a Joe Burrow level performance versus Alabama. Their QBRs were identical in their games. He makes a good point. JB in 2 seasons was 25-3. JD in 2 seasons is 16-7, and the season's not over yet. Let's give JD his due and JB his. Yeah, so I'm gonna make one thing clear, okay? Jayden is not Joe Burrow. I don't think Jayden ever wanted to be want anything to do with the Joe Burrow comparisons, right? They're honestly their personalities are honestly very similar, right? Very affable guys, very tough guys. They don't like missing games. They get hit like absolute crazy and pop back up. They both put in a lot of work. They both had, supersonic leaps from their year 1 to year 2 starts. Both were year 4 and year 5 transfers into the program. And obviously the biggest difference, and one thing that Jayden had over Joe going for him as an advantage, is he had 3 years of starters experience, and he had 2 years with the modern offense, where Joe Burrow only had 1 year with the modern offense, right? But yeah, Joe's record is significantly better than Jayden Daniels' record. But it is important to point out that quarterback wins and losses are very much an overrated stat. Now, they are part of the equation, but, Joe Burrow had a far better defense, right? And, we're talking about Tyler Shelvin earlier in this live stream. We don't have a Tyler Shelvin on our team, right? Tyler Shelvin's backup, Siaki Ika, would probably be our best defensive tackle. Obviously, the scheme would be different. But if we had one of those guys, either one of those guys, we'd be able to run the scheme that Matt House ran versus Kentucky. Okay. I truly do believe, though, if we were just to look at the numbers, Jayden is having a Joe Burrow season in terms of his own individual play. Where I would say, though, where Joe does separate from Jayden is let's take the Ole Miss game, for instance. Joe Burrow is completing that final rollout to Malik Neighbors, right? That was a very weird miss from Jayden, right? Joe, I think, is completing that pass, and Jayden wasn't able to make the throw. And it was there. Joe also had a near perfect game in every game, where Jayden, of course, in the first game versus Florida State, was very good, but he wasn't elite. Joe was elite in every single game he played in 2019. So, I think the hard thing for anyone to do, and this goes for any quarterback really, is Joe was just perfect in almost every game. Almost every single game, you got perfect quarterback play. And Jayden, of course, is I think is in that realm of greatness when you just look at the stats. And the final thing, but I listed a few things that Jayden had going for him compared to Joe. The one thing that Joe had in his favor is Joe had a defense. Okay. Now, was the defense great in all those games? No, they weren't great versus Texas. They obviously weren't great in the second half versus Alabama, but they were very good. The LSU defense of 2019 was very good. Now, they weren't dominant. They were very good. Okay. And for anyone that disagrees with that, I would highly recommend you go back and listen to our interview we did with Patrick Queen earlier in the year, where he cleared up a lot of the things that were misconceptions about the defense. And he shared like a few things about specific games, like the Ole Miss game and all of that, right? There you go. And that's true, Race. I would not disagree with that. We definitely do not beat Alabama if Clyde Edwards-Helaire did not have one of the greatest games we've ever seen from an LSU Tiger in any position. But that kind of adds to the point that Rob is making, though, right? Is that, and it's honestly just blatantly clear, okay? The thing that concerned me in this Alabama game this past weekend, okay, was to beat Alabama. The one thing you consistently see with teams that beat Alabama is you have to have multiple players play their best games of the season. You really do, okay? So let's take last year versus Alabama, all right? And let's list the players who played their best games of their college careers, if we're being honest, okay? Mason Taylor played the best game of his collegiate career last year versus Alabama, blocking and receiving, okay? Josh Williams played probably the best game of his collegiate career versus Alabama last year. Jarek Bernard-Converse, one of the best performances we've ever seen from an LSU defensive back versus Alabama last year, okay? Will Campbell shut down Will Anderson, a first-round draft pick, outside of one play in the first half where Will Anderson got a sack and we scored on the next play. So, to beat Alabama, you got to have all these people step up. And versus Alabama this year, we had two players play at their absolute best, and that was Malik Neighbors and JAYDEN Daniels. And Josh also was having a really good game. He started to cook. And that was about it, okay? Our special teams wasn't the sharpest. You got to remember that Alabama game in 2019, Cade York hit some big field goals. We missed a big field goal. We just weren't our sharpest. Our offensive line had their worst game of the season versus Alabama. In order to win the game, you got to have those things go your way. You've got to have your defense get you some type of stop. So, yeah, I mean, those things are very critical if you are to slay the dragon. And it doesn't matter which Alabama team it is, right? You got to have guys step up. You just do. So, yeah, to finish up Rob's Super Chat here, I think, Jayden could have 3 lights out games. And he won the Heisman Trophy. I think it's going to be nearly impossible for someone to ever really get to Joe Burrow's greatness at the quarterback position. Also, something else. one other reason why I want Jayden to keep playing is because I'm interested to see what Malik does in these final 3 games. Billy, good to see you. Rumble says this season is a failure. He's calling me delusional. We're losing the best players on our offense. We haven't built a dang thing to look forward to. There's been no development at all. Okay, so who are we losing on offense? Well, we're losing Jayden. We're losing Malik. We're probably going to lose BTJ. Okay. And Logan, I think Logan will jump. But we return Will. We return Emory Jones. We might return the entire offensive line for a 3rd season. Okay. I don't know what Charles Turner, Miles Frazier, and Gary Dellinger are going to do. I just don't. We return Mason Taylor. Okay. Now, it is going to be near impossible for Garrett Nussmeier to play as good as JAYDEN Daniels in his first full year as a starter. Okay. And there is going to be growing pains going from a quarterback who is drastically different than Garrett Nussmeier, right? Doesn't mean you can't still put out a championship level team. It doesn't mean that at all, right? And no matter what, our defense is going to be better next year just by default. Okay. Let's go to Cliff. LSU didn't need the best game for multiple players. LSU needed to stop Milroe from scrambling on 3rd down. Horrible coaching by House by not spying. Yeah, I agree. I mean, it's crazy. It's absolutely crazy, insane. Any word you want to describe it, it's wild. Absolutely wild to see that. Okay. Let me see here. Making sure I'm not missing anything Jayden related. No, looks like nothing new. I've been refreshing my phone every 2 seconds. So, what I'll do though is I'll play this clip right here. Actually, I'll play this clip from Jacques Doucet. This was Brian Kelly earlier today at the press conference, or excuse me, at the teleconference. And type Y for yes if you're able to hear this.
Yeah. He worked out this morning, and it appears as though that workout went well, which is the last stage before he's cleared for non-contact practice. So we're expecting him to practice today. If all things go well through practice today, then he'll be cleared for contact on Thursday. Yeah, I believe that our medical people put him in what is called our concussion protocol. I don't know what the specifics are, but it certainly triggered our protocol for concussion. I don't know what the medical bar is for that, but I can tell you this, that he has moved through these stages to the point where, as I mentioned to Shay, that he worked out this morning, ran 20 miles an hour, and today we'll be able to practice in a non-contact fashion. So if he goes through today's practice, then we'll decide, what's his preparation level, compared to, Nussmeier's preparation level and make a decision on who would start on Saturday.
So there you go. Let's go to Billy here. My thing is, are they afraid of Alabama or something? Because they are just like any other team that can be beat by anyone. Okay. I understand. Trust me, I hate Alabama as much as you do. They are not any other team. Okay. Nick Saban is the best coach ever for a reason. Okay. They're hard as hell to beat. And that's all there is to it. They're hard as hell to beat. Nick is buttoned up, and they consistently fight back from deficits, unlike any program you'll see in college football. Okay, we've seen it this year. Tennessee up 20-7, no big deal. They come back and win. Arkansas jumped on them early, no big deal. Okay, we jump on them early, 7-0, 28-21 early in the second half. No big deal. 21 unanswered. No big deal. Nick is that dude, man. He might be 70 gazillion years old. He might do things I disagree with strictly from a football standpoint. I hate the hell out of him for saying what he said to Aaron Anderson. I don't think you should ever say that to a kid. But he's a GOAT. I mean, he every year he's got a top 5 roster in terms of talent. And, they're a different breed, right? They're machines. They're mentally smart on defense. They communicate well. And what makes that really impressive is this guy's replacing coordinators almost every year, right? He's that guy. I mean, that's what kind of concerns me about Kirby's reign. Kirby is actually a really good coach. It's not just that these guys have the best players. Okay. They are coached at an extremely high level. Okay. But once again, Kirby learned everything he learned from Nick. So, those guys are legends, and Brian Kelly is in that same stratosphere. He's just got to win a national championship to firmly cement himself with those coaches, right? So take that for what it's worth. You might not like the truth, but it's the truth. As a program, we still have a while to get there. And the good thing, as you as an LSU fan, is Brian Kelly is very much aware of that, because he told you this before the season even began. Okay? Now, I do have something here towards the end. And I was saving it because, obviously it's all a bunch of negativity this week. And it's not negativity for the sake of being negative like some LSU fans. It's just some truth serum. Okay? I didn't see this Rumble Road. I mean, they're both from Florida, so they probably know each other. Here's Trey. Maybe some good news. Josh Newberg at On3 predicts Bryce Underwood to LSU. Okay. It is good news. I do think Bryce Underwood is that dude. I really like him. Okay. He is a can't-miss 5-star quarterback. He is the 8th highest ranked quarterback in the history of the 247 composite. And he would be the 2nd best recruit LSU has ever had, behind only Leonard Fournette. Okay. Obviously, this would be a colossal land, if you ask me. if we do get him, it sets up one of the craziest quarterback rooms we've ever had at LSU. Okay. Obviously, Ricky Collins, obviously, Garrett Nussmeier for next season, but the backups to Garrett would be Ricky, then Colin Hurley, then Bryce Underwood. Okay. So sets up really nicely. And a whole lot could change from there until then. I think the one piece of news, Trey, that will probably change for LSU over the next 5-ish or so months, I do think LSU will be in the market for a transfer portal quarterback. I do. But it all depends on how LSU feels about Ricky Collins and his development at this point. So if Ricky takes some strides in the next couple of weeks in practice, that might change your opinion on if they need to go out and go get a QB. But we'll see. I do want to welcome LD88 along with Forbes. He is a patron. So on Patreon right now, as LD88 figured out earlier today, I released my breakdown of all of Garrett Nussmeier's reps versus Alabama. Okay, what I liked and what I didn't like. One thing that was very underrated that was working against Garrett Nussmeier on that drive, on those drives, that nobody else has mentioned except for your boy. It's all on Patreon, patreon.com/LSU Football. Okay? I think this is a good comment from Noah. Yeah, very beatable. And, I go back to this, though, with Nick. When can you point to him having just an awful unit? Like just some area of the game of football where his team is just pitiful. It's rare, right? Now, a lot of that has to do with the talent he recruits. But the fact that you really just can't point to any one unit that you can just say, hey, this year their offense was bad. This year their defense was bad. And obviously the special teams issues that he used to have been mostly fixed. Come on, Jay Madison. That's just not true. It really is just not true, right? Should they have gotten in Dallas Turner's face? Sure, but we've done that quite a bit, right? Getting in someone's face after someone got hit, right? Mason Taylor did it after Jayden got hit, speared versus Missouri. Our defense has protected our guys, but I would never, unless I truly do believe it. I don't think calling anyone soft is justified here, right? Now, were there some moments in the Ole Miss game in particular where I felt, you know what, I don't think we're actually going in there as hard as we possibly could. Yeah, I think so. And could we be more aggressive? Could we have that dog in us a little bit more? Yeah, I think so. I think we're missing a little bit of a killer instinct, if you will. But, it is what it is at this point. And you're right, Josh. This is definitely one of Saban's. I don't know if I'd call it like a bottom 5 Saban team. Obviously, that team that lost ULM is probably his worst team, but yeah, it's definitely one of the weaker teams. I would say so. Yeah, I agree with this, Cliff. And the thing is, the Bama offensive line played better versus Tennessee, and they had started trending in the right direction. They still should not have dominated us as bad as we got dominated. Okay. I'll take a few more. Once again, if we super chat, we'll keep going for a little bit longer. Once again, our top super chatter at this point has been Rob. I appreciate you, Rob, so much. Thank you so much. Yeah, we didn't talk a whole lot about Womack earlier with the true freshman situation. Everybody, welcome Nick E to the channel. That's true. A lot could change, you're right. Quan says if we had a spy in the whole time, we win. I do agree with that. At the very least, it's close. It's not a 14-point game where they're pulling away, right? So there you go. Yeah, it's true. But, the defense also used to have, Tyrann Mathieu, Jamal Adams, Arden Key. And we just, I don't know, we don't really have, we do have some difference makers. They're just not playing at that level. One thing I think that would be interesting is I don't know. I would more than any other time with any other LSU football team, I would love to sit in on a meeting room, right? A defensive meeting room, and just go through some of the tape that they're watching. And I'd be interested to see if some of the things that I see are getting brought up because, I think one. And once again, I think we already touched on the Bryce Underwood thing. I wanted to save it for the very end because I wanted to end on a high note. Okay. One thing I think it's pivotal, absolutely pivotal to keep in mind here. Okay. And before I say this, one thing that is so crucial to keep in mind about this defense is they did do. I've said they don't do anything well. They did do a good job not giving up the explosive passing plays, right? But man, it's just so crazy to me that we just could not get one big stop, right? And on the very first drive, we did use a QB spy. Now they converted a third down, but at least we didn't let Milroe run on us, and we did eventually get a sack on a twist stun and staying in our gaps, right? But man, it's painful. It's really, 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 really painful. One final thing though. Once again, Bryce Underwood, please commit to LSU. There is a piece of me that thinks the Army and Auburn game set us back defensively. And what do I mean by that? Well, if you actually go back and listen to the defensive film studies, I kept saying, hey, yeah, they only scored 18 combined points in 2 consecutive games, but the film showed that it really wasn't that great of a defensive performance, right? We were just going up against teams that aren't good offensively, that lack special skill position talent. If you factor in Army, if you factor in Auburn, if you factor in the bye week, the Alabama game was the first competitive game that we had really played in a month, right? And it was also the first competitive game that we played in a month away from Tiger Stadium. So, the schedule was kind of weird. Right? You played 2 back-to-back road games, then you sat out, and then it was back on the road after a bye week. could the Army and Auburn game have led us to think that some of the things that we weren't doing well, such as missing tackles in the front seven, getting out of our gaps, losing contain and pass rush lane integrity, those three things in particular really hurt us. We still did those things versus Army and Auburn, but they only scored 18 points. And it made us think, well, now that we got it fixed. Well, we didn't have it fixed, right? And we did, and on a high note. What's up, Walter? Good to see you. I will answer that Bob Diaco question in the Discord because I do need to go. Thank you guys so much. Once again, our top super chatter is Rob G. And we'll see you in the PHL Patreon. But yes, Rob, Walter, I would be open to somebody else calling the shots. But at this point, I did, I don't know. I will, unless you're really thinking about Diaco being the guy next year, I don't know how much you actually gain from that. But we'll talk to you soon. It is Power Hour LSU. Boom. We'll be live tomorrow night. So we'll see you there 8:15. We'll have a special guest. And tonight, it's Gumbo Night 3, baby. Let's